Hi there. Thank you for your interest in my Churchill Fellowship. My name is Monique Dam, and I am the Chief Executive Officer of Lucy's Project, a national Australian charity which creates systems change to improve the safety and well-being of people and animals experiencing domestic and family violence. In my previous role as Advocacy and Prevention Manager at Domestic Violence New South Wales, I led research on violence perpetrated against people and animals and advocated for reforms to improve protections and supports for victim survivors. I recently completed a Master of Education by Research at Monash University, where I explored how early childhood education can foster children's compassion towards humans and animals. So, the area of family violence perpetrated against people and animals is something I've been interested in for a long time, and it was a privilege to be able to undertake a Churchill Fellowship to investigate initiatives to improve the safety of people and animals experiencing family violence. My fellowship was grounded in the belief that every person and animal has the right to be safe and to live free from violence. People who use family violence will often threaten to harm, or even kill animals to hurt them and the women and children who love them. Women, children, and animals face significant barriers to accessing the supports they need to be safe, which puts them at risk of escalating violence. Through my fellowship, I set out to learn from programs, policies, and laws in the USA and Aotearoa, New Zealand, that support people and animals to find safety and to heal and recover together. I developed recommendations for program policy and legislative changes across Australia and have used my fellowship to provide case studies of innovative initiatives to strengthen the case for systems change to improve the safety and well-being of people and animals experiencing family violence across Australia. My research findings and recommendations are targeted at parliamentarians, advisors, policymakers, leaders and practitioners across the domestic and family violence, community, homelessness, animal welfare and veterinary sectors, as well as survivor advocates and community members. For my Churchill Fellowship, I travelled to the United States of America and Aotearoa, New Zealand, between the 20th of February and the 16th of April 2026. I travelled to Los Angeles, San Francisco, Portland, Seattle, Sacramento, Las Vegas, Washington, D.C., New York City, Christchurch, and Auckland. One of the models that I looked at was animal-inclusive crisis and transitional accommodation for people and animals experiencing family violence. Every person and animal experiencing family violence should have a safe place to live where they can heal and recover together. And this is being provided by a number of services that I visited and met with across the USA. Raphael House, Bradley Angle, Home Free, and Monica's and Mary Mack House in Portland all provide emergency, crisis, and transitional accommodation that is animal inclusive and that enables people and animals to live together. They provide dedicated spaces like a living room and outdoor space where people can spend time with their animals. These services highlighted the importance of training and policies for staff, as well as clear agreements with clients on caring for their animals. The services highlighted how this benefits the well-being of survivors, as well as helping to build trust and relationships between staff and clients. We've was another organization that I visited in Sacramento, and WEAVE provides crisis, transitional, and long term supported housing that is animal inclusive, enabling people to live with their animals, addresses barriers to leaving a violent partner and parent, and relationships with animals provide joy, stability, and support for children and young people. This was highlighted by Weave and shared as the reason why they have worked to reduce barriers to leaving a violent partner and parent by being animal inclusive. The Urban Resource Institute is based in New York City, and they established the People and Animals Living Safely program in 2013. And over this time, they have helped over 150 families and over 1,100 animals. The workers I met with highlighted how animal inclusive co housing is key to delivering client centered and trauma informed care. They also emphasized the benefits and the importance of cross sector collaboration and partnerships with animal welfare organizations. Another initiative and model that I looked at was crisis accommodation that also provided veterinary care and recovery support for animals experiencing family violence. Animals experiencing family violence should be cared for until they can be safely reunited with their family members if they are not able to be co housed. Pet Refuge New Zealand is an incredible organization that ensures that all animals, small companion animals, through to large companion and farmed animals, can access the support, including the housing and accommodation they need to be safe. They take referrals from family violence refuges and police, veterinary clinics, and what really struck me was that they focus on ensuring that the animals receive plenty of enrichment and care and love and support to heal and recover from violence. They provide weekly updates for the human family members to help them to stay connected with their animals. Noah's Animal House, based in Las Vegas, has supported many clients with animals ever since 2009. And over 95% of clients with animals have been reunited. Noah's Animal House is a unique model because they are co-located or located right next door to a family violence refuge for women and children. At Noah's Animal House, they provide health assessments for animals and all the care that's needed for the animals to be safe and well. They also have on site spaces where human victim survivors can visit their animals and spend time with them. I was really struck by this cuddle room that they provide, which really emphasizes that it's important for people and animals to have space together to heal and recover. And they also have an on site playground where children and their parents and their parent and the animal can spend time together. Noah's Animal House over the years has supported over 36 species of animals and 2,800 animals. And they will take animals of all kinds, including snakes, turtles, parrots, bunnies, axolotls, crabs, chickens, hamsters, gerbils, alongside cats and dogs. I also visited Pasadena Humane, which has a Helping Paws program for people experiencing family violence. They provide emergency boarding, so that people experiencing family violence can find a safe place to stay while knowing that their animals are being taken care of. They also have a pet food pantry and pet supplies for people experiencing family violence or other kinds of crises. They have enrichment yards for their dogs and spaces for cats as well to play. And one of the key initiatives most recently was their significant response to the emergencies that arose due to the wildfires. And during this time, they provided support to people and animals experiencing homelessness as a result of the fires, recognizing the intersection with domestic and family violence as well. Animal Haven in New York City is another service that I visited, and they provide emergency accommodation for animals who are experiencing family violence and have a dedicated social worker as part of their team who will coordinate referrals and supports with family violence services across New York City. Of course, these are not images of animals who've experienced family violence for safety reasons, but these are some of the other animals who were in their care at the time when I visited. Another organization that provides crisis care and emergency support for animals experiencing family violence is the ASPCA. The ASPCA has locations across the USA, but I visited their New York City location and shelter. Here, there are a range of supports that are provided in addition to providing emergency care. This includes forensic veterinary science services, where vets who are trained in forensic science collect evidence to support animal cruelty cases. There are also extensive policy and advocacy, including legal advocacy and research teams that undertake work to highlight the policy issues relating to people and animals experiencing family violence and the legislative reform that's needed. They also have a community engagement team that works to keep people and animals together by providing free veterinary care, transportation, and supplies in close collaboration with family violence services. They also provide training and support for law enforcement agencies, including the New York Police Department, and which prosecutes animal cruelty cases, and which now recognizes animal uh, welfare as part of core police work. While I was at the ASPCA, I had the opportunity to visit their Animal Recovery Center, where they support people or animals who've experienced violence. And I visited their forensic exam room and the on site hospital as well, where they provide behavioral assessments and safe housing for animals. And here is the wonderful team of people at ASPCA who I met with. Another initiative that I investigated as part of my fellowship was capacity building and collaboration across the family violence, homelessness, community, animal welfare, and veterinary sectors. Practitioners and services should be supported to respond to people and animals experiencing family violence and to collaborate across sectors. And a number of organizations are leading this work across the USA. Red Rover and Greater Good Charities work very closely together, and I was fortunate to spend a lot of time with them in Sacramento. I attended Don't Forget the Pets training, which is part of a national program that they run, which includes education and coaching support on how to support people and animals experiencing family violence. And that's available for services across the domestic and family violence and homelessness sector, as well as for animal welfare organizations that want to support people experiencing violence. They have a training handbook. They organize events and webinars to upskill practitioners across sectors. And they have an extensive document library which provides templates for policies and procedures on how to support people and animals experiencing family violence. They also offer grants for family violence services and animal welfare organizations to better support people and animals experiencing violence. And they provide a safe escape grant, which includes emergency boarding for animals, or which covers emergency boarding for animals of people who are experiencing family violence. Greater Good is also an incredible organization, and they do a lot of work to ensure that family violence refuges and animal shelters, as much as possible, can accommodate people with animals, or that animal shelters can accommodate animals in crisis who are experiencing domestic and family violence. And they will make modifications to family violence refuges and shelters. The Animal Welfare Institute, it has a national directory of animal inclusive refuges, including which is called the Safe Havens for Pets directory. And they also provide training support and resources across sectors on relevant legislation and policies and programs that relate to people and animals experiencing family violence. For instance, they provide guidance on pet protection orders and cross-reporting schemes that where there is cross-reporting for child abuse, animal abuse, elder abuse, and domestic and family violence. They also do a lot of work to build coalitions and alliances across the USA to advocate for people and animals experiencing family violence. And here they have, here you can see one of their resources that they developed for veterinarians to include in their clinics to highlight the importance of veterinarians identifying early signs of domestic and family violence. Two other organizations that work to promote collaboration across sectors includes My Dog is My Home and the New York City's Mayor's Office of Animal Welfare. My Dog is My Home is a national organization, but they are based in New York City as well. My Dog is My Home promotes storytelling by people with lived expertise of family violence and homelessness. And they enable people to share how important their relationships with their animals are and how critical animal inclusive housing is to their safety and well-being. My Dog is My Home also do a lot of community building by organizing meetings to bring people together from across sectors and services, annual conferences, and a really unique model of open houses at services to share best practices of co-sheltering models. They also provide technical assistance for services that want to better support people and animals experiencing family violence, and they undertake advocacy and research on the link between animal companionship and homelessness. The New York City's Mayor's Office of Animal Welfare plays a really critical role in pushing for animal inclusive accommodation for people experiencing homelessness, including people who are experiencing domestic and family violence. At the moment, they are promoting a one welfare approach across the mayor's office, recognizing that the well-being of people and animals is interconnected and touches across many social issues. They are currently considering developing a dedicated task force focused on people and animals experiencing homelessness, and they work closely with the New York City Police Department, which has animal welfare liaisons at every precinct. I was also interested in exploring through my fellowship advocacy for systems reform to improve the safety and well-being of people and animals experiencing family violence. This is because laws, policies, and programs should protect and support people and animals experiencing family violence. I had the privilege of visiting the Center for Animal Law Studies at Lewis and Clark Law School and the Animal Legal Defense Fund. I met with both of these organizations and institutions in Portland, though the ALDF does have locations and staff working across the USA. They have a close relationship, as in 1993, Lewis and Clark Law School was actually the first student chapter of the Animal Legal Defense Fund, and it was through a collaboration that the Center for Animal Law Studies was actually established. The Lewis and Clark Law School faculty were incredibly generous with their time, and they highlighted a number of legislative developments across the USA to me, including the enactment of legislation to enable animals to be included in protection orders. So, over in 42 out of 50 states in the USA, animals can now be included in protection orders. They also highlighted legislation that demonstrates courts are now, or legislation and laws where courts are now considering the welfare of animals when making decisions about their ownership and custody. The Animal Legal Defense Fund has been advocating for legislative reform to improve the safety and well-being of animals experiencing family violence, and they have developed a set of model laws. This includes laws to grant a human victim survivor the care and custody of an animal, and to order that the person using violence stay away from the animal. Other organizations that are leading advocacy in this space include the Humane World for Animals and the Animal Welfare Institute. I met with both these organizations in Washington, D.C. The Humane World for Animals and Animal Welfare Institute have collaborated on advocacy for pet protection orders to be introduced across numerous states around the USA, and they have also collaborated on advocacy to establish and maintain the Federal Pet and Women's Safety Act grants program for housing and support for people with animals experiencing family violence. This act not only provides housing and support, but it also ensures that animals are included in laws relating to stalking and protection order violations. Through my fellowship, I also looked at organisations that undertake and promote and commission research on the relationships between people and animals, including in the context of family violence. And this is important because research should inform strategies to prevent and respond to family violence against people and animals. I visited the New Zealand Centre for Human Animal Studies at the University of Canterbury in Christchurch and met with Professor Nick Taylor, whose research has highlighted the importance of the relationships between human and animal victim survivors of violence and the need to recognise that animals are victim survivors of family violence in their own right. She's also emphasised that violence against animals is interlinked with violence against women in a patriarchal society. As part of my visit, Professor Taylor organised a symposium that I presented at. The Human Animal Bond Research Institute is based in Washington, D.C., and they commission research across the USA and internationally on the relationship between people and animals, including within the context of family violence. They've commissioned research on how animal companionship impacts decision making and the mental health outcomes of human victim survivors, and also more generally looking at relationships between people who've experienced violence and trauma and their animals. They've highlighted research that demonstrates that relationships with animals are beneficial for people who experience anxiety, depression, and PTSD. Through my fellowship, I also looked at education for children and young people on animal welfare and how to be compassionate towards animals. Because children and young people should learn that animals are sentient and suffer too, and how to be compassionate towards them. Red Rover has a number of programs to support humane education, including their Readers program, where they provide and highlight books for children that build empathy and compassion towards animals. And they share resources and information about these books with educators across the USA. They also have a program called Kind News, where they will develop a magazine for children and young people that highlight stories of caring for animals and animal welfare issues. Peter also has a humane education program called Think Kind or Teach Kind, and they are based across the USA. They provide resources for teachers and schools on humane education and animal welfare, and they support animal protection clubs established by students. They have a real focus on community building and connecting educators and teachers across the country. Another organisation that I connected with is called Futures Without Violence, and they are building a Courage Museum. This museum is targeted at young people and encourages them to learn about different forms of violence, including domestic and family violence, and to think about what they can do to prevent and end violence into the future. They are also considering including a statue of a woman with an animal who is fleeing domestic and family violence to highlight the issue. Following on from my fellowship, I have a number of recommendations. Firstly, animals should be recognized as sentient beings and as victim survivors in their own right under the law. This would enable animals to access family violence protection orders as a protected party in their own right. The safety and well-being of animals should be the paramount consideration when courts and authorities are making decisions about their legal or registered ownership. People and animals should be able to access emergency, crisis, and transitional accommodation together. And animals who cannot be housed together with their humans should be able to access emergency and crisis accommodation and care, including support to heal and recover from the violence. This must include large, companion, and farmed animals in outer metropolitan, rural, and regional areas. In Australia, we should also establish a national or state and territory directory of services that will provide co-housing and support for people and animals experiencing family violence, and increase and support cross-sector collaboration to promote better responses to people and animals experiencing family violence. There should be guidance and support for services across sectors to update their policies, procedures, and practices, and education and training for practitioners across sectors on how to recognise and respond to family violence. Police, lawyers, social workers, and veterinarians should also be required to undertake mandatory education on family violence against people and animals. There should be support to ensure that intake, risk assessment, and safety planning tools and frameworks include questions about animals and harm and threats to harm and neglect of animals. There also needs to be investigation into whether a framework for permissive or mandatory reporting should be introduced. In the USA, there are mandatory reporting and cross-reporting schemes that relate to family violence against people and animals. There should also be a framework for information sharing and cross-reporting about family violence and animal abuse between police and animal welfare law enforcement authorities. We also need more research in Australia on family violence perpetrated against people with animals and animals to understand the prevalence, incidence, and co-occurrence of this violence and to improve prevention and response. Finally, to prevent domestic and family violence against people and animals, we should provide education to foster compassion towards animals as sentient beings to children and young people from early childhood through to tertiary education. Following on from my fellowship, I will incorporate case studies from my fellowship into a national roadmap for change to prevent and end violence against people and animals. This has already been planned to be launched at Australian Parliament House in August and New South Wales Parliament House in September. This event is going to be co-hosted by Lucy's Project and parliamentary friendship groups. I also plan to include case studies from my fellowship into a submission by Lucy's Project to the Australian Government consultation on the second action plan under the National Plan to End Violence Against Women and Children, and to meet with parliamentarians, advisors, policymakers, leaders and practitioners across sectors, as well as professional bodies, foundations, and corporations about what we can all do together to improve the safety and well-being of people and animals experiencing violence. I also plan to deliver webinars, presentations at interagency meetings, and to undertake interviews and social media to share my findings and recommendations. Together, we can create a future where every person and animal across Australia is safe. This is a QR code to my LinkedIn. Please do connect. I'd like to acknowledge the Winston Churchill Memorial Trust for this incredible opportunity to undertake the Churchill Fellowship. Also, my family, survivors who've so courageously shared their stories with me, and that inspired me to undertake further research into this issue of family violence perpetrated against people and animals. Delia Donovan and Moo Bolsh for being my referees for the Churchill Fellowship application, and Anna Ludwig, the founder of Lucy's Project, for her support and her passion for this topic. I'd also like to thank the Lucy's Project board and team and Domestic Violence New South Wales, where the research began many years ago. I'd also like to acknowledge all of the people who I met with as part of the fellowship and who so generously shared their expertise and insights. I'd also like to acknowledge the people who I met with before and after the fellowship as well, in locations that I did not visit, but whose work I found out about through making contacts for the fellowship. Thank you so much for your interest in my fellowship topic, and I'd love to stay in touch.